Hello everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Field, the official podcast of the Drum Major Leadership Academy sponsored by the Band app. My name is Joshua Hecht, I'm the director here with DMLA, and in today's episode I am joined by three other amazing instructors. We have Emma Boone, Savannah Light, and Kenneth Watts Jr. from the Drum Major Leadership Academy, and we're going to be talking about our experience teaching and leading in the virtual world. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty with the different things that we're experiencing in today's time. So we're going to share some of our best practices, best advice, and other recommendations that you can take home to your ensemble starting today. Before we dive into that, let's go ahead and get a couple of quick introductions out of the way. Like I said, my name is Josh Hecht. I'm the director here with DMLA. I'm from Pensacola, Florida, and I'm a drum major with Music City Drum Corps based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Emma Boone, how about you?
Hi, my name is Emma Boone. I'm currently a drum major and music education major at UCLA. I'm also a member of the Blue Devils and an instructor here at DMLA.
Savannah, how about you?
Hello, I'm Savannah Light. I am a communications major at Ball State University. Go Cardinals, Troop Chirp. I am a drum major over at the Troopers Drum and Bugle Corps, and I'm also the head of curriculum here at DMLA.
And last but absolutely not least, Kenneth Watts Jr.
Hi, I'm Kenneth Watts. I'm sound engineer with Carolina Gold Drum and Bugle Corps. I'm also head of marketing here at DMLA.
Really cool. Well, hey, it is so great to be talking to all of you today. I know there's a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Emma, you mentioned that you were a music education student at UCLA, and I know you're student teaching right now. What has it been like kind of focusing on your teaching and studies, being in the classroom, and then suddenly having to be in this virtual world? Like, what are some of the things that you've learned from that experience? What challenges have you overcome? And is there anything else about that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I've learned so much from this past year of student teaching. I've been student teaching elementary school students for a little bit, and now I'm working with high school students. Basically, what I learned when I went into my high school guiding teaching is that, like, my guiding teacher told me, what we're doing here is not really teaching. Like, it's providing a support. It's providing an environment for your students and giving them worthwhile experiences through music in an online format. And that's exactly what we've been trying to do here at DMLA with all of our workshops. And it's been absolutely amazing and so fun to do that. But and one thing we have included a lot into our curriculum that is actually from like the administration at the school is SEL, social emotional learning, and that includes we're like required to do that, but I already just love doing that and think it's important, so I may do it a little bit more often. But every day I get to student teach one class, but I observe all the others. So I take over this one class with my students every single day. We do an icebreaker. They come into class and I'm playing music that they enjoy, music that they've put on a little playlist and they've chosen, and it's right after lunch. You know, usually students are tired too, like they're already tired in Zoom school, so it's just kind of recognizing that and doing what you can to help keep them engaged, because obviously the hardest thing with online teaching, online learning, is just staying engaged, staying a part of the conversation, staying a part of the learning, and so by recognizing that yes, this is something that we're going to struggle with, rather than just trying to get rid of it or trying to prevent people, you know, saying things like, oh, come on, like, why aren't you paying attention? Why aren't you doing this? Like, that's just a given. But accepting that and trying to find ways to keep students engaged it's just been really hard. But also, through a lot of hard work, I've tried to figure out some things. I've seen students who barely used to talk in class on Zoom now totally participating in these little icebreakers. Sometimes we'll have fun debates. We're like, is Shrek 2 better than Shrek 1? Like, say why. Or like, you know, fun debates, or like, what's the best Doritos Locos Taco? And like, students will just be so excited and vibrant. Sometimes we'll do breakout rooms, and I know the breakout rooms is like the dreaded students, like, so sometimes I try to lead them in a full group activity, but we always start the day out with that, and then I go, all right, everybody, you know what's next? We're gonna put on a drone, we're gonna do our scales for the day, and then they're like, but by starting out with that environment in the very beginning and then keeping that consistent every day, I've noticed that students are, you know, they're more relaxed when they come into class. More students have their cameras on. While we can't require them to do that, a lot of them have their cameras on for the icebreaker and then turn them off when we play, but I can still see that they're playing later, so I think they're just a little self-conscious. But really, just what I've learned is that social emotional learning, and just like in any Zoom environment, whether it's a meeting, whether it's a class, whether it's a workshop, is just having a sense of community that students, that anybody isn't getting normally. You know, when you're in school, you're with your friends, you're hanging out, eating lunch together, you're walking into class together, you're sharing, you know, passing notes, whatever. But that we lose that when we switch to this, when we've been in this online format. So that's why a lot of students have been struggling with school. And so by trying to find ways to kind of help build the camaraderie, help build the sense of community through a laptop screen, through a webcam, I think is one of the most important things in leading this virtual environment. Because then once they feel engaged, once they feel connected to other students, they're more willing and more able to participate. And you can't get everyone to be like that, but what you can do, I think, has been super helpful. So that's a lot of what I learned and what I highly recommend.
Yeah, you definitely have to know each and every member. Like, of course, every band program has its own culture, but when it comes to this virtual environment, you really have to be in tune with every member. And I think that's one of the coolest things about what you're saying, Emma, is by having that SEL or social emotional learning kind of approach with things, you're able to take the time and say, hey, what's really going to resonate with my band? Whether it's for you as a teacher right now, or else as a drum major with UCLA, I'm sure there's been a lot of things going on there too. I know one of the biggest things that's been helpful for us at Music City has just been the casual kind of social hangouts. One of the things that we did in the past couple of weeks was created this Discord server with the entire drum corps in it that's auditioning right now. And yes, we have our educational sectionals, yes, we have our kind of organized corps meetings and things like that, but what we found has been resonating with most of our members is just those kind of casual, on-the-fly, sectional type deals. We can definitely dive in, or sorry, not sectionals, the random social hangouts, whether it's playing Among Us, whether it's talking about what is your favorite type of pizza, exactly the things like you're mentioning, Emma, and we can talk a lot more about that later in today's call. But Savannah, I know you've been doing a lot of things with troopers too, and you all have a really organized kind of process that you're doing with your auditionees right now. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like online and maybe what you as a drum major are doing to help support those efforts?
Yeah, I don't want to talk it up too much and say that it is a really organized thing. It is mostly organized though. I know that all of the sectionals have Google Classrooms, and that's been a big way that we've been using that platform to do assignments throughout this off season that we have. We also have lots of group me's. We have like a full hornline group me, but then also our separate sectional group me's. And those group me's are usually used just for like, this is information that y'all need. But the hornline group me, for some reason this year, has turned into just this huge thing that everyone just gets information from, but we also like joke around and have lots of conversations in it. Our caption head, what do we call him? Tim Snyder is his name. He is always putting something in that chat. Whether when we were coming out with all of the show music and stuff, he'd be like, hey, do y'all want to know a secret or something like that? Like just the way he would bring up like, here's your show music. He would do it in like the silly way that got all the members really hyped. And I think that's been a huge part of keeping that social emotional learning thing. It's been a huge part that kept us driven. It's keeping us moving forward. We have this hyper energy and we're just excited, and we just think everything that's happening is so cool because of the way that it's all being delivered through these group me's. And it's always like, hey, this is a secret, but like, or we'll just announce it in just such a like interesting way that, I don't know, captures our brains, I guess. We also have some virtual camps that we've been doing, and these have been really interesting and really fun. We always start out all together, percussion, so both front ensemble and battery, all of the brass and all of the color guard will all start out together, and we'll have like our first like couple minutes of like, hi, here's some information, but then one of the guard staff members will take over and lead us through some stretching and some workout stuff. And so then we're all like, the other day when I did it, I felt like I was like in a yoga class, like a virtual yoga class for a minute, and it was kind of interesting, and I was able to like feel driven by myself, but also listen to the staff member talk through everything and really push me. And so I've really enjoyed that. And then we would take 15 minutes break in between each transition. So after our like warm up, 15-minute break, and we'll go to our I would usually go hang out with the brass, but we'll have 15-minute break, go to a visual thing for a little while, 15-minute break, and then a music thing, 15-minute break, full ensemble. And so I think that's been really interesting and a great way to have that to make up that transition time that we would usually have in person, like Emma was speaking about, where we don't get the time to hang out and be together and be silly. And so now we have this 15-minute break in between instruction where we can just like, oh, that was so cool, or like, hello, how's it going? That really killed me. Like that was a lot. I made a joke once about like, oh, this is very different from weightlifting, and then someone later on in a group me was like, Savannah, you're right about that. That was totally killed me at the end there. The workout did, but it's those kind of things, and putting in that time to give us time to hang out and just interact with each other outside of just giving instruction through this camera has been something I think helped us an awful amount. Like it's transcended us to be able to not only like bond, but also like just get to know each other in ways that maybe we wouldn't have been able to in person. Since in person it's probably like, oh, I gotta walk and talk, so maybe like I can't like spend too much time talking to you because I also have to go use the restroom and do 20 other things in my 5 minutes to go from this block to the next block. I feel like I've talked forever now, but that's a little bit about what's been going on over at the Troopers.
Yeah, no, I really like that you were mentioning the things about working out, even if it's on Zoom. I know one of the things that, for those of us that are drum majors or section leaders right now, it's going to be really important to instill in our ensemble is a lot of those physical movements again. I mean, you even think about, like, you haven't been marching on a field most likely for quite some time now. You've probably have been in your room behind a Zoom camera, in your classes or whatever. So even there, you're not walking down the hallway to and from different classes, which is why this season more than ever before, getting our members physically prepared is so important. One of the things that we've been doing at Music City has been creating these Muscle City pages where our members can get physically fit. They can post a selfie after they do their run or after they work out at the gym, whatever it might be. Not necessarily saying, here's the physical requirements that you have to do this week, but show us what you're up to, help motivate other people, challenge people to do it with you. And for any drum majors listening right now, or any band directors too, this is something really cool that you can start with your programs. If you have your trumpet section and the trombone section and the saxophone and the guard, like whatever it might be, every section can have these fun little workout challenges to motivate each other, to get physically active, to kind of compete and use that as their motivation. But more so, again, getting physical is just the key thing here. Maybe it's what section can do the most like average number of push-ups in a week. And you keep track of it, the section leaders write it down, and at the end of the week, whatever section gets that gets like a spirit reward or like a little piece of recognition, whatever it might be. But you don't have to do anything that's so complex, because it's easy to start now. Do the things that are easy to do that you or someone else can easily pull together for your program, and that's a great way to get started. Once band camp begins, we're ready, we're kind of in the zone. We've been doing a little bit of physical preparation now, but something I learned from a marching health webinar a couple days ago is that it takes like 6 to 8 weeks for your body to readapt to getting physical. So do start now, even if it is virtual, and do what you can to get your members engaged. Savannah, I know you had something else to add there.
I was just going to mention the same thing. Troopers also has a Troopers Health and Wellness page. We've also used it as like a kind of getting some updates about COVID and everything that's been going on. And so I know the other day I had posted on there asking some questions about the vaccine and everything, and so being able to like listen to other or read about others' experiences with the vaccine and to try to figure out where I want to go with that. But it's also the same thing here, Josh, at Troopers. We've been using it as just like, hey, I ran a mile today and like hit a new PR or personal record. And so that it's been just a really inviting and welcoming and really encouraging environment on there. Because everyone's just like, I'm finally doing the thing that I've been wanting to do. And everyone's like, yeah, you go you. So I've been having lots of fun there.
Yeah, and Kenneth, I know with you, whether it's with Carolina Gold or Alchemy Independent, you've done a lot from kind of behind the scenes perspective as a director, as an assistant director, and even with a lot of local high schools in the area. Whether it's something physically or even just socially getting people engaged, are there any key pieces of advice or recommendations that you would have to a drum major or a band director who might be listening today?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing I got from the other two speakers in all of this is that you should try your best to set the tone to be positive. Like this kind of, over this last year, it kind of has given you a telling kind of view into what your culture is or what you thought it was versus what it actually is. And this is one of those times when you can really dive into, okay, what are the things we can change? What are the things we can enhance? What are the things that I thought were good that aren't so good, and how we can dial it back? Um, is everyone retaining everything in all these virtual things that we're doing? Were they retaining things in person? Maybe I need to rethink the process on all of those things put together and find out how I can communicate and be more effective in that communication. Uh, One thing that's happened with this virtual setting is that you kind of have to be really direct or straightforward as far as like going from point A to point B and trying to figure out how you want to get things done. And you're not actually there to like show them or physically give a demonstration. You can by moving your camera around, but it can be a little bit taxing in trying to create those examples for them. But making sure you think about the communication you're having before making it so that they can be clear in the understanding. And that happens for every single one of us when we're on a marching field and now in front of a screen. Like, we have to make sure we're very clear and concise about what we want and how we can be successful in getting tasks done. Whether it be just going from point A to point B on the marching field, or playing A, B, whatever note on your music, or who's being sus in the muggers. Like, just trying to figure out how you, within that time limit, try to figure out like, how we can all communicate so we can vote this one person out, or how we can all communicate to find out, okay, what's this one person missing that the rest of the section is getting. Or one of the things that kind of goes that I personally use with this is that I currently teach I currently teach percussion at Laney High School in Wilmington, North Carolina, and my biggest thing with them is that I want them to come into the classroom thinking that, okay, whatever happened during school, that's fine, that's not here. We're gonna start the day getting better, and the whole culture I want them to gain from it is that when I step into this room, I can get better. It doesn't matter if I failed a history exam, or if I lapped somebody and did get a really good PR on track or PE. I'm coming in here and I'm saying, okay, when it comes to focusing on music and this crowd of people, I can get better, and there's no limit to that. It may change, and I would want them to take that outside the classroom, but at least in this place, we can start with this very firm foundation of, okay, I can get better. Now, what do I need to do to get better? And each time they come to the classroom, I try to give them something so that they think about that process, and they go, okay, how can I apply this to the rest of the things I know? Or how can I apply this to this other class that's kind of like that in the building process? Like, I'll teach them note by note, but I'll also teach them how I'm teaching them note by note, which to some people, it's completely crazy as far as like how I'm trying to fire on all those cylinders. But at the same time, as the season starts to progress, they start teaching themselves. They start motivating themselves to a point where I can come in one day with the expectation of, oh, we're going to play all of part one by memory, and we're going to go from top of part two to the first hit, and I think that's going to be memorized. And then I'll show up, and they'll have the first three parts memorized, saying, oh, yeah, but we just went ahead and met as a group, and it was really easy. I remember that thing you taught me about this, and it's in this section. I'm like, oh, well, great. So I'm going to now set the bar higher. So in creating that, in setting the tone really early, that is going to be positive and that they can succeed in whatever medium, whether it would be virtual or in person, by doing that from the get-go, or making sure that you change the things that you have been doing, what ends up happening is that the base that you're communicating, it starts to buy in, that you're actually invested in them becoming successful, and then they start to double down on the energy that you're giving to this classroom or giving to your Zoom call. So I try to take that anywhere I go, whether it be I work with you all with DMLA projects like launching the new website, or when it comes to me being in the classroom and I'm writing music for them and they go, oh, actually, I think I like this better, and they play it and then they can tell me exactly how it's written. Or when it goes to Carolina Gold and I'm trying to mix sound and they go, actually, I hear this, or hey, why don't you try to tweak this, or I moved this thing for you because I think you are looking for this sound and you're trying to get this better. Like, creating that tone, setting the tone and creating that atmosphere wherever you go, and having that spread throughout the people that you're interacting with is going to take any platform miles and miles.
Kenneth, everything you just said is absolutely beautiful, and I'm so glad that you spoke it so elegantly as well. Something that I would like to add on is that starting early is something that we are really trying that we've been trying at Troopers as well. We've been having weekly leadership meetings every Sunday. And we always have like some sort of assignment. And the past couple of, like this past month, we've had this assignment where we have to reach out to our section's membership. So if you're the trumpet section leader in the leadership group, you'll reach out to all the trumpets, and it's been different kind of like every other week on exactly what we're supposed to reach out about. Sometimes it was like just saying hello, hi, how are you? Are you surviving? Are you okay? And then sometimes it's just like, hey, have you gotten your COVID vaccine, or have you thought about this, or are you planning on to? Then it's also we've been trying to work on some recruitment as well, because I don't know if everyone else knows this yet, but I know maybe some of us here do know that the marching arts is kind of taking a hit right now with motivation and also just recruitment in general. So that kind of sucks, but we'll get through it. I know we will, because the marching arts is an activity that has been there for lots of people, and I know with time it will bounce right back to where it was before, if not better. But that like starting early by reaching out and having that communication between our member leadership and our members, as well as our staff leadership and our leadership members, that having that communication, that open line of communication where we all feel comfortable talking to each other, I think is going to be really beneficial for us later on, especially once we go from virtual, like how we are right now, to being in person. I think it's going to be really interesting to have that experience where we're all like super like, I don't know, however we interact online, and then like changing once we're in person, or how different that might be once we finally get to like be together in person. I know that's something that was really interesting for me, because I with DMLA, because I only like really interacted with most of the instructors virtually, and then at some get together that we had planned, and like I met like half of the instructors in person for the first time, and I was just like, this is so different, oh my. But I was able to form that bond early on with all of them, and so that once we were able to meet in person, all it was just eyes and shaking the hand, and we were able to just continue with where we were before.
Savannah, I what you said about kind of the marching arts suffering and numbers and everything, I think like I've seen that kind of being on the other side with teaching, of being doing some interviews and talking to other directors, is that I think music just overall is taking that hit, because I think one thing is that people are just finding it really hard to, like, for people to stay engaged in classes. And I think probably if math was an optional course, we'd be losing numbers in math too, you know, like stuff like that. But I think what I've seen is that a lot of directors are taking this online format, as much as it sucks, as a new opportunity, and doing things that they couldn't have done before, such as, DMLA is able to reach people all around the country now virtually. A bunch of people have been able to connect with more schools and just other organizations, even just in music. And I think it's like people are taking the time, and hopefully I hope people are taking the time, like kind of like you said, also starting early and just starting these things now is just like rebuilding systems, rebuilding how we do music, how we teach music, how we get people involved in music, just all around in every kind of facet. I think that's something that a lot of schools have been doing, and I hope people continue to do, is just taking this time while people are, while we may be losing some numbers, but taking the time, all right, are we doing things the best way we can be doing them? It's a very reflective kind of thing that I like that people are doing. And I think when you said, Savannah, I just had a really quick joke. You said about people like meeting them in person after being virtually, and I saw this like joke somewhere that was like, I know like your deepest secrets and your deepest convictions and all of everything you like, but I don't even know what your knees look like. And like that's what I feel like is gonna happen to me when I see people. But I think it's just while as much as everything does suck now, it's like finding, okay, well, how, like Kenneth said earlier, those positives, how can we make this into something better? How can we improve upon ourselves? What's the good in this, rather than focusing on the negatives, because there are plenty.
Yeah, I think all three of those points are amazing. Like, all three of you brought such a different perspective to that, and I think it's so important to be able to, as student leaders, recognize all of those. Every director right now is doing the absolute best that they can do, but obviously every student leader, every passionate member of an ensemble is also coming up with creative ways of things that they want to do with their program. Kenneth, you mentioned something earlier, which is that this year is the year to try something new. For you, whether it was as a marching member going to your director or now you in a teaching position, if someone comes to you with an idea of something that they want to do, what is the best way for them to approach that type of situation? Any advice?
Yeah, with something like that, your first and foremost thing should be to think about how it's going to affect the entire group. So you don't necessarily want to continue just trying new things, because what eventually will happen is the student will recognize, well, this is nothing. They won't really buy in. They'll do it or they'll buy into it, but they won't fully commit to it. So you want to have ideas and think about how they will affect the group in a positive way, and then fully commit to a few ideas. And then as those things grow, then you start to add things that kind of segment off toward that. The one thing about this coming year, which I mean, even has caught some of us off guard, that directors obviously know, is that, yes, they have freshmen coming in, but they have freshmen this year that they may have freshmen this year that haven't done the thing like they normally have, but they also have two sets of grades of kids that have the old way of doing things, and they have this virtual system, and they're about to have this brand new season, and you can easily create a divide. It easily creates a divide, because like, we used to do this, but these are the students that are getting ready, like they've come in on a different type of wavelength. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that whatever you're choosing is going to unify and have them want to move forward because the program wants to move forward. Not, well, we're going to just do this for now, and then eventually we're going to be back to the same thing, so I don't really have to buy into this so much. It's like, no, this is a chance for the entire program to change for the better. Whether it's fixing problems that we had, fixing problems we had in the past, but also updating and integrating to a new possibility for the future.
Kenneth, again, you just speak so eloquently about some topics, and I appreciate you so much for that. I wanted to add some things about communication and reaching out to people. So this is something that I've learned from Tim Snyder, actually. Tim Snyder is an awesome person if y'all ever get the chance to meet him. But Tim Snyder, something that he's been talking to us about is like reaching out and like the art of reaching out to people. And so he talked to the leadership team, and he told us that his expectation for us is that whenever he sends out a message, or if anyone says anything in our group chat that needs a response, you have to at least respond. Even if it's like, hey, can you do this? Or like, hey, will you do this? It's not like just respond once you have it done. It's like it and say, got it, I'll get it done later. And then that's all he asks, is that as soon as you see it, you respond to it. Even if it's just I see this, I can't read it right now, but I will get back to it later. And then he follows up with following up. So let's say it's later and whoever you reached out to hadn't answered or hasn't done their task when they said that they would. You just follow up and say, hey, this is just a reminder. I know you said that you would be able to do it at this time. I don't think you have it done. If you could get that done, I'd really appreciate it. And usually it's just like, oh yeah, totally forgot, spaced my time and everything. So that reaching back out really, really helps. Something else that he's also talked about and has been trying to encourage us to do is actually using the cell phone mode on your phone is how he described it, was using your actual cell phone and not just texting and communicating through that. And that's something that just in our generation is really different, and something that we don't typically do is just talk over the phone. And so that's been a huge thing that we've been having to do as well. As I mentioned earlier, the leadership team has been reaching out to our members and everything. We also have to not just text them and communicate through that. We also have to call them and be like, hi, hello, this is my voice. Can I hear yours? So I think that's something that might be really, really helpful. As like if you're a leader in your organization, is taking the time to actually call your members, and you could easily divide it up just like how Troopers has been kind of doing it, is where the section leaders will call their section members, and then if you're the drum major, so like you're at the you can reach out to like your 2 other drum majors or your 1 drum major, whatever it looks like for you, but also reaching out to your section leaders and saying, hey, how are you doing? And so it's not just always on them to be like, how is everyone else doing? You can also go back to them and be like, hi, how are you doing? And that's an awesome opportunity to also, if they ask you, how are you doing, to be honest with them and be like, no, honestly, right now I'm struggling a little bit. My math class is totally kicking my butt and I don't understand any of the work. You might just find out they're a genius mathematician person, so you can just get some advice and get some tutoring from them. But having that time to just talk to people one-on-one over the phone and not just through a text message in this generation is something very different, but something that I think would be really beneficial for all of us. To go back one more time, if you reach out and they don't get something done, reach back out, and it's not going to be a burden. That's the biggest thing I think. I know I have an issue with is feeling like after I reach out, if I reach out again, I feel like I'm bugging people, and I don't want to make them feel like I'm just like chirping at them all the time. But even if it's just a small message like, hey, just referring back to my last message, and that it being that, I think we all like to overthink some things sometimes, and I'm definitely one of those people, but you do not need to overthink sending another message just to remind them, just like, hey, I thought you were going to reply to this message, or say, maybe they don't reply at all, and just sending like, hey, can you read this again?
If you're listening right now, go ahead, grab a piece of paper and a pen, write this down. Savannah's biggest message in there is reach out, and know that it doesn't have to be about something that's band related. As band members, we're so often kind of, we run ourselves down this hole of only ever talking about band and music and marching and our instrument and whatever, that we don't always take the time to get to know about people for being people, not just as members of the band. When you reach out, exactly like Savannah said, you might find and learn all of these cool pieces of information that you wouldn't have known otherwise. And for those of you that are listening right now, again, you might be on our Apple Podcast or on Google Podcast, and some of you might be over on our YouTube, where we are having a completely different experience by being able to see each other and interact. That is not something that you get over a text message. Exactly. Hi, Savannah. Which is why it's so important that whether it's a phone call, whether it's FaceTime, Discord, Skype, Zoom, whatever it might be, take those chances when you can to get to connect with people, to get to talk, and even if it is exactly as Savannah said, how are you doing? That opens up so much conversation and builds so much trust and makes your relationship so much stronger. And follow that up with, what are you looking forward to about next season? I promise you, as a section leader, as a drum major, whatever your role might be, or again, just as a passionate and excited member of your ensemble that can't wait to march next year, you're going to brainstorm so many cool ideas that you can bring to your program together the following season. And kind of like Kenneth was sharing earlier, think about how it affects the rest of your program, and then be comfortable approaching your band director about it. Find a time that you can meet, ask for 5 minutes of their time to share an idea with them. And again, by having these conversations, so many doors are going to open that wouldn't have otherwise, especially if it's just done over text. Emma, you mentioned in our chat earlier, we're communicating a little bit in the background. What about intrinsic motivation? Finding ways for an ensemble to be able to motivate itself and kind of become automated in that way. Do you want to talk about how we can start that tradition or that culture virtually, and then how that transitions to once we're finally back in person this summer?
Yeah, well, actually, Kenneth touched a lot on that, and that's why I said intrinsic motivation. I was like, advanced music education words, yes, because there are two things. There's intrinsic and there's extrinsic. As extrinsic motivation is like, we need to rehearse well at this competition, or we need to rehearse well because there's a competition. There's a reward doing well at the competition, at the festival. that's the extrinsic motivation, but intrinsic motivation is like what you always want to get from your peers, from your students, from anyone, even if you're in a leadership position. And that's what Kenneth was going into. And so that more than ever is like as important, just as important, more important this year, because a lot of students are losing that intrinsic motivation. They're like, why am I even going to class? Why am I even doing music? I'm losing. That's like that's the core of like why we're doing these engaging activities. They're like, what's this for? I have to record another video project. You know, it's like video assignment or something. But by giving them those tools that Kenneth was talking about, and again, eloquent, amazing. I agree with Savannah. But just so I'm not going to touch much on that, but just kind of about the mechanics behind it. But by giving students that intrinsic motivation to get excited about what's going to be happening in the future, when we come in back in person, like these are our plans, students will kind of just, or people will just kind of continue to just hang on and remember like, okay, this is not what it normally is, especially if you have new members, you have freshmen. This is their first time experiencing, maybe it's first time experiencing high school marching band, and they're like, what, this is it? Or for us, we've had that same problem with students experiencing college marching band for the first time. We're like, we promise it's not, this is what it is normally isn't, you know, like there's so much more to it. So by trying to keep the engagement in, and obviously if it's not for everyone, it's not for everyone, but trying to show people that, look, this is what it's about. It's about this community. It's about our passion for music. It's about doing it together. And just like, again, that intrinsic motivation is like the core of like what you should be thinking about. And so I think that is just something to help get people to that end point too. You're climbing up the hill right now. We're going through that journey. But think about that destination, the end point when things hopefully do go back to normal and safely, or start to go there. Just that'll give students the drive to again, have that motion, have that engagement intrinsically, rather than the director saying like, all right, let's get excited, like blah, blah, blah. It comes from the students, and coming from the students, they are more powerful in communicating with each other and inspiring each other than a lot of, like they're not better, but it comes across better to students than it does from a director just kind of saying it to them, because it's their peers, it's people that they're with and that they trust and that they know a lot, and people that are their age. So definitely like getting that is just love it, Kenneth. It's great.
100%. And to kind of bring all of this full circle, towards the beginning of today's podcast, we talked about the importance of knowing every member as a member, and that's kind of come up as a theme throughout all of this. And exactly with what Emma's saying, as you're starting to inspire that culture of intrinsic motivation and self-sustained kind of effort and drive, you have to know every member of your ensemble. There might be some that are positively motivated, meaning if we do X, Y, and Z, look at the possibilities. And there might be some that are a little bit more negative. If we don't do this, look what might happen. So as you're beginning that culture, as you're starting that transition to an ensemble that's intrinsically motivated, keep that in mind. What words should I say with these people? How can I help best support them through this process? And from there, you'll be set up for success. As we begin to wrap up today's episode, let's go around one more time, maybe Kenneth, Savannah, and then we'll wrap up on Emma once again this time as well. What is your biggest piece of advice about the things that we've talked about right now? Leading virtually, leading through uncertainty. What are the things, and if you're listening again, bring out that paper and pen again, write these down. But what types of advice would you like to share with anyone that's listening today?
As a drum major, support your band director. They have a lot of work to do. Your job in influencing other students is, again, set the tone. Do what you can to get everyone from the past and for the future motivated to get the program to be as great as it can be.
I would have to say, be as understanding as possible, and don't be afraid to ask for help yourself if you know that you are having this lack of motivation. And I know that the most difficult thing probably is going to be to just even reach out in the first place, of like, hey, I need some help, or hey, I'm struggling a little bit. It's probably the most difficult thing to do, especially when you're wanting to be a leader, or you're a leader in general. You don't need to have that title to be that leader, but if you're wanting to be a leader and you're in an organization, just being able to say like, hey, I'm going through a tough time. Can you all surround me with some love right now? I'd appreciate that. And just knowing that it's okay to do that. You're human as well.
It's like those things, Savannah actually stole what I was going to say, but it's like those things, it's like, hey, can everyone sit in a quick pet picture in the chat, like even something like that. Like, don't ask questions, but just send your best cat picture or something. But I guess like because Savannah stole my thing. But I think just like recognizing that not everything is going to go according to plan. Not everything is going to be perfect. You will be struggling, and just recognize that like that's just a part of life. And so, and just learning to be okay with that. Learning to be okay with what Savannah was saying. Learning to be okay with that. That maybe you do need help. That you need to lean on others, and finding those people. Maybe it's okay that you do need to take some time for yourself. You just need to set your phone down and just take a moment or take a morning. You know, put on some tunes, dance around your living room, whatever you need to find that. Kenneth just said in the chat. Kenneth, can you just say that last thing that you just put in the chat? I would love for you. I want to hear it from you.
Just embracing change. This is different. Be okay with things being a little bit different, and you having to like pull a little bit or push a little bit just because things are not going exactly the way you planned it or you envisioned it. Things will always evolve. So just be ready to kind of ebb and flow as it comes.
And the most amazing thing with that is that the things that we learn work this year can continue with us and spark new traditions with our programs that last for generations. So thank you all so much for your time today. It has been amazing getting to talk with all of you. And be sure, for those of you listening, be sure to subscribe. We have another episode coming out in 2 weeks all about engaging your ensemble. I know there's a lot of kind of abstract concepts that we're talking about today, but in next episode, we're going to talk about how to make these changes and how to implement them effectively. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to come from Beyond the Field. And everyone, again, thank you for your time today. It's been great talking with all of you. Until next time, stay inspired. Thank you.